Today I'm going to answer the question that I get asked more than any other. In fact, it's probably the one question that every photographer gets more than any other. Hey Alex, you're a photographer. What camera should I buy? Hey guys, it's great to see you all again. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex and I'm a photographer from the UK. I feel like this is the question that photographers hear all the time, right? There definitely isn't just one answer, but I feel like there is an answer that will suit 80% of people, and it might surprise you. Before we get started though, I'd really appreciate if you take a sec just to subscribe down below and like the video as well. It's a super quick, easy, and more importantly, free way to support me and get this bad boy off the ground. So the way I see it, there are three kind of main categories of camera. In each of these categories, there's a scale from really cheap up to much more expensive, and they've all got their pros and cons. Broadly, you can break them down into three main categories. First, point and shoots. These little guys generally do what they say on the tin. You point, you shoot, there isn't too much input. You don't usually have too much control over things like your exposure settings. You just point it in the direction that you want and take the picture, job done. The benefit of these is that they're generally smaller and cheaper cameras. A lot of them can fit straight in your pocket and you can take them anywhere, which is always a bonus, which means you've always got a camera with you wherever you go. And that means you're much more likely to use it to take photos. You can pick them up for about £100. I'd recommend spending a little bit more than that. You don't get a huge amount of your money for about 100 quid. You can pick up a Fujifilm XF10 for about £400. I actually have the XF10's older brother, the X70. It's a few years older, but it's got a big sensor in it, the same that I'm filming on now, in my pro camera that I used to shoot weddings. It was actually the only camera that I took with me on my honeymoon a couple of years ago, because it was small, it was light, I could throw it in a bag, I could throw it in my pocket, and I took it everywhere, and we got some really fantastic pictures out of it. In part because I get full manual control. It's basically the same as my big camera, but a lot smaller. Sony have got the RX100 series, which are about £1,000, and that is a lot of camera in a point and shoot. The next category is bridge cameras. These are kind of in the middle between point and shoots that we've just spoken about and the next category that we're going to talk about in a minute. They're physically bigger than point and shoots, maybe with a bigger sensor, and they will usually have a massive zoom on them, like a monstrous 50 to 600. They may give you a little bit of extra control over your exposure with maybe some manual or semi-manual modes. They also, similar to the point and shoots, have a fixed lens. Personally, I've never quite seen the point in a bridge camera. They generally are all of the capabilities of a point and shoot, but in an interchangeable lens camera body. So I feel like you could go for the smaller body for the same functions, or go for the bigger body and get more camera for more money, I guess. I don't know, they kind of sit in a middle ground that I've never quite understood. And for the money, I've always found there to be better alternatives. Category number 3, interchangeable lens cameras. They tend to come in two different flavours, DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. For the purpose of this video, we'll treat them as the same thing. If you want me to go a little bit more in depth about the difference between DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, let me know in the comments down below and I can make a video about that in the future for you. Now these are the big boys. These give you full creative control over everything that you need to take a photo. You have full exposure control. You can change your lenses, so you can go super wide, you can go super zoomed, or you can put a tiny little nifty 50 on it and run around with a relatively small package as well. They go from little prosumer bodies for about 500 quid, but don't forget you need to add a lens, all the way to the beast pro level bodies that go from anything from 2 grand up to 5 grand. And even more if you want to get into the medium format kind of stuff. On the cheaper side, they'll probably have a smaller sensor, like an APS-C size sensor, which is actually what I shoot on, and they might not have the fastest autofocus or the highest frame rate. But they are absolutely perfect for hobbyists and people that want to start taking their photography a little more seriously. On the pro side, kind of £2,000 plus, you're probably going to get the bigger sensors, so either full frame or medium format, and all of the latest tech. The fastest autofocus, eye autofocus, animal eye autofocus. I think Sony do that, which is cool, because if you've got dogs, you know they don't sit still. Obviously, sensor size doesn't necessarily mean that a camera isn't professional. Fujifilm's the flagship line, so I've got the X-T3, which was the flagship body, and the X-T4 and the X Pro line. They all use an APS-C size sensor, and there are some fantastic pro photographers that use the Fujifilm system. Anyone that tells you that you have to have full frame in order to be pro, just off, is talking out of their arse. There are some truly great pro photographers that use Fujifilm gear and other APS-C gear for their professional work. It's absolutely not a barrier to becoming a professional. In my opinion, bodies with an APS-C size sensor offer a great balance between compactness, lightness, portability and quality as well, and they're more than capable machines. So which should you buy? Or rather, when you get asked the question, what should you suggest that person buys? A point and shoot for its portability, a bridge camera for its monstrous zoom, or an interchangeable lens system for their bigger sensors and lens options? Well, none of them. Probably. So I found that in general, when someone asks what gear they should buy next, it means they shouldn't buy the gear. When you're just getting started in photography, you just need to use something, anything that you have that can take pictures. Use that to get started. Try it out, see what it can do, see what it can't do. Once you start using the camera and you understand the kind of things that you want to take photos of, you understand what you want from it and what it can't do for you. Once you know what your current camera can't do for you, you know exactly what to look for in your next upgrade, in your next purchase. So when someone comes up to me and says, hey Alex, you're a photographer, I really want to start getting into photography and I want to buy myself my first camera, what should I buy? 9 times out of 10, unless they really want to spend kind of £750, £1,000 on a camera setup, my answer will be, well, you have a smartphone, don't you? Why don't you try that? And you don't need the top iPhone either to be able to take fantastic photos. If you've got a smartphone from the past 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, then you've got more than enough camera in your pocket right now to start taking pictures without any additional investment. I'm really only experienced with iPhones. I've never used a decent Android phone, but iPhones now can shoot super wide, they can shoot super long, they can shoot in the middle. Pictures look great straight out of camera, so you can just snap away and be done. And there's a whole host of editing apps out there that you can use to make any edits that you want to your photos without the need for a computer or any fancy editing software. And you don't just have to let your phone make the decisions for you. There are apps that allow you to take full control over your exposure, so you can change your shutter, your ISO, your aperture. That way, when you've been taking photos for a little while, you understand what you want, and you drop $1,000 on a new camera setup, you're not disappointed because you can't work out why your photos are all dark or they're all too bright or they're all blurry. When you get that camera, you know exactly what you're doing and fix any problems that you might have. And there's the added bonus of always having your phone on you. Sometimes you'll forget to pick up your camera, or you won't want to take it with you because it's big and it's bulky and you can't be asked to lug it around. But you always leave the house with your phone, right? If you've got your phone with you, you've always got a camera, you can always take pictures. So until you find what the limitations of a smartphone as a camera are, and you start asking really specific questions like, what do I need to zoom really far into those birds over there? Or how do I show all of the detail on these little cufflinks? Why can't I nail the photo of the motorbike screaming by? When you've got really specific questions like that, you can work out exactly what gear you need to get to solve the problem that you have and get the type of photos that you want to take. So when people ask you what camera they should get, start recommending the smartphone. They can save some money, or I'd probably recommend they spend that money on lessons to understand how to take good photos, or speak to a photographer friend to give them some pointers on getting the most out of what they've got. So that's the answer that I give when I get asked, what camera should I buy? Especially when they have a budget of £200 or £300. In my opinion, that's better off invested in lessons and education. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.